Talking with the experts.
Great question. Well, I have 7 awesome steps to get free publicity, and the O of the awesome stands for owning your power. Now, the first step is to realize that you do have a great story to share and that you are worthy of sharing that story. You do not need permission from anyone to actually step up with your story or with your message. And in fact, if you're not stepping up as an expert in your field and being known as the expert in your industry, then someone else in your field will be. And if you think about what they're sharing in the media, most likely it's not anything spectacular that you wouldn't share. The only difference is they've packaged up what they've done and they've put it out there in a way that you haven't. The good news is it's not too late, okay, because media have multiple experts on their books. So the thing is to overcome your fears, firstly, realize you're worthy. You have a great story to share. Your X factor is your story. Nobody else has your story.
Talking with the experts.
Hello and welcome to Talking with the Experts. Talking with the Experts is about all things business by business owners for business owners. I'm your host, Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com. I specialise in online event management and podcast mentoring and training. And in this episode, I am speaking with Aldwyn, and she's a lovely young lady from up in Queensland in Australia. And Aldwyn is a mass media marketing expert. She's known as the Media Queen. She is a TV host, speaker, photojournalist, and author of multiple international best-selling books. She's got 37 years of media experience, and her PR company, AA Exposed Media, is the only one she knows of that guarantees result in the mainstream media. Welcome, Aldwyn, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Rose. It's a great honour to be here with you today.
Terrific. So tell me how you started in the PR industry.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I've got 37 years media experience, as you heard there. And it's interesting because growing up, my father always watched the news. Every single night he would watch the news. And this was actually very disturbing for me as a child because a lot of the mainstream news is very negative, right? And I remember one night after watching the news, Dad would watch up to 2 hours of news every single night. And I would watch it with him. And I remember being so disturbed by what I saw. I was in tears, crying and saying, why is the world so cruel? Why are people like this? And he hugged me and he said, darling, that's just how the world is. And so I believe the world was cruel and nasty, etc., to that point. And I grew up in Sydney as a first-generation Australian. I was bullied as a kid, never really felt I belonged, never felt seen or heard. And my dad always said anger is danger. And so I internalized my anger for many years until the age of 8, where he showed myself and my brother how to play table tennis. And I used to beat the hell out of the ball playing table tennis. And that led to my first media appearance at age 10, being interviewed by the Manly Daily, because I became very good at table tennis with my brother. We were training a lot. And at age 10, the Manly Daily came out to our garage in North Balgowlah. And the photographer got up on a ladder, and I remember him looking down at me, and I had my bat and my ball at the table looking up at the photographer. And I remember thinking, wow, that looks like a really interesting thing to do. I'd love to do something like that one day. And then at age 11, I was on Cartoon Connection on Channel 7. And I remember being in the Sydney studio, and there was a massive camera in front of me. There were about 20 or 30 people in the Sydney studio, and there was a table tennis table behind me. And I remember the TV host turning to me and saying, Aldwyn, just don't think about the 2 million people watching this right now. And then she kind of laughed, like it was like a flippant kind of comment. And all I could think about was the 2 million people watching this right now. So I absolutely freaked. I looked at the camera and froze. It was the worst interview ever. However, they did have a table tennis table in the studio behind us at the time. My brother and I got on, and I thought, I'm just going to focus on this ball. I don't want to look at the 2 million people at that camera over there. And so we just played forehand to forehand. We just kept that ball going forehand to forehand at the table. And that wowed them. They're like, oh my goodness, how do you do that? And we thought, we're just warming up. This is nothing. You haven't seen. But to them, they were blown away by that. And that goes to show that the media are not just looking to educate nowadays. They want to entertain as well. And the other point about that is that often we are too close to our own genius to see what the genius is about what we do, right? We're too close to what we do every day. And then from there, I did a a poetry show on Radio Manly Warringah at age 13, and then did some work experience at the Manly Daily, and went through quite a rocky period in my teenage years. I had a very strict European upbringing. I have Greek, Turkish, Ukrainian background, and my dad was very strict. Whatever my dad said to do, I would do the opposite. And so after 2 years of rebelling against everything he said, he kicked me out of the house at 15. I moved into a crazy household with a drummer whose mum was an alcoholic, his sister was dealing drugs. And in that environment, 6 months into that, there was a turning point. And the turning point was I saw my boyfriend sleep with my best friend in front of me. And I remember the Pretenders song, Don't Get Me Wrong, was playing on the turntable. And I was so devastated by what I saw. I was in tears, and I remember calling my mum saying, I can't handle this anymore. She said, come home. I still didn't talk to my dad for months after that. However, I went home, and then I changed my environment. I went from Mossman High School to Forest High School. And I'd actually gone from ducks of my primary school. And in that crazy environment in Manly, I actually failed everything in year 11. And I changed my environment, went to Forest High School, worked my butt off. And then when it came to the end of the year and people ask you at the end of year 12, oh, what do you want to do with your life? I remember looking at everything available at uni. And the only thing that interested me was the media course, because I had a bit of film, had a bit of radio, had a bit of photography. I thought by the end of this media course, I'll know what I want to do exactly, right? So at uni, there was a job going at the University of Canberra. I got into the media degree there. And there was a job going as editor of the university newspaper. And I remember applying for that job 3 times before I got it. And then I ended up being the longest serving editor of that publication. And I loved the power of the media there to actually share stories about things that saddened me or angered me that I had seen in the mainstream media or in magazines, etc. There was no social media back then. We're talking 92 to 94. And whatever I saw that I was not happy about, I thought I'll write about it and I'll help to give people information that they can make informed choices. So I did stories about, there was one about duck shooting. I couldn't believe people were shooting ducks for fun. I did one about the environment. I did one about female circumcision, one about recycling, about battery farming of chickens. So whatever it was that I saw that got my attention in some way, I would write about it. And then from there, I moved to Brisbane after uni, and I ended up working in the media in TV, radio and print, right across Australia in Brisbane, Toowoomba, Mackay, Coffs Harbour. I worked at the Gold Coast Bulletin and Gold Coast Sun as a journalist sub-editor from 2000 to 2005. And on the side, I started a photography business, which was AA Expose Photography. And then when I left the Gold Coast Sun in 2005, it evolved into a media business. So now since 2002, 19 years, I have had my business, and it's been one hell of a ride, I can tell you, Rose. So that's a bit of my media background.
Wow, and it's a very impressive background, I must say.
Thank
you. You know, I know a little bit about you because, you know, we've got mutual friends, and, you know, we've come into contact with each other from time to time. But how can, how can people gain a positive, how can they gain positive publicity without, you know, having to jump through the hoops of a PR company?
Yes, great question. Well, the fact is that any negative can be turned into a positive. And also we're at a time, very exciting time right now, where out of the 7.8 billion people on the planet, we have 3.8 billion active social media users, and we have many, many different media outlets now. And even the mainstream news outlets have good news sections that they have on their websites, and they have at the end of the news bulletins, you'll hear generally, 1 or 2 good news stories, but generally it's not the main thing you hear in the news. So any negative can be turned to a positive, and it's about where you pitch your media to. Now, we have 2.2 million podcasts right now worldwide. In 2018, it was only 500,000. We also have literally millions of magazines, radio stations, newspapers, e-magazines, physical magazines. There's 1,600 magazines just in Australia alone, for example. So there are plenty of places where you can get positive publicity that focus on good news. We have the Good News Network. We have Sunny Skies News. We have news.com.au has a good news section. So there's lots of places that you can specifically pitch good news to, and then we can always turn around a negative into a positive. So, for example, last year I did some PR for a guy called Dr. Mia, and the headline we used for our press release was "Fear of COVID is making people sick." And then we turned that negative into a positive, and we said, these are simple things you can do to boost your immune system during COVID. So you can use a catchy headline that's attention grabbing, that's mentioning the negative, but then turn that into a positive. Another example of that is when I did an animal action event a few years ago, and we were raising funds for the Currumbin Wildlife Hospital to help the koalas. And the headline was, koalas are critically endangered, and this is now what we're doing to help. So we had a community of people rallying together to help save the koalas. And there's 3 simple things people can do to help koalas. They can drive slowly at night, they can contain their dogs at night, and they can plant eucalypt trees, as an example. So there's always ways you can turn things around and get positive publicity. A big part of it is actually getting the fact that you have genius in your story, that you have genius in what you do. You are generally too close to your story, most people are, to see what the gems of their story are. And that's where working with an expert is a great way to go, because they can often see what you can't see, or working with a coach or a mentor, they can see things that you can't see for yourself. And the other thing is, we're not taught to actually speak up in life. We're taught to be seen and not heard, generally growing up. And so it takes something if you're going to step out of the mold and you're actually going to say, right, I'm ready to put myself out there. And what comes up for a lot of people is a lot of fear. Generally, a lot of fear comes up for people because the powers that be want us to rise to the middle, right? I've got the glass ceiling, or tall poppy syndrome here in Australia. So it takes something putting yourself out there. And, I'm a huge advocate for truth and good news, for the truth and for good news to be shared worldwide. And the more you can look at being of service, the less fear you will have worrying about how you're looking. Like I was when I was 11, worrying about the 2 million people watching me right now. What are they going to think? How am I looking? Whenever the attention's on me, I'm going to be nervous. Right? And that's the same with anyone when they're being interviewed. If you're focusing on yourself, you will be nervous. Whereas if you focus on being of service and how you can help people and focus on being in your truth, then the nerves disappear.
Yeah, great advice. I think I might take that on board when I do my Facebook Lives. I can do my podcast and I can give a talk. Do you think I can do a one-on-one, me and the camera and nobody else? No.
Yes, well, it's challenging because it's not natural. It's not natural to look at a device and talk to it. It's kind of it's weird almost.
No,
right?
not unless you're a bit that way inclined. And I haven't really been that way inclined. I talk to my pets, but I won't talk to a camera. Yes. So a good way to look at that, if I can give you a tip on that, is actually to consider the lens of the camera on your device. Consider it like an eyeball. And what you can do, what some people do is they'll actually put a picture of a smiling face behind where the camera is. So it actually feels like you're talking to someone, talking to a face rather than just talking to the little circle. So that's quite a good tip. I've actually got a star next to my camera to remind me to look at the camera every so often. But it still does feel a little bit weird, I must say. But that's something that may help, is putting a smiley face. Oh, well, that's a great tip. I'll take that on board and try that.
Yeah, or put a photo of a family member or a friend, that you feel comfortable with. You could do that as well. Act as if you're talking to a friend.
Good. Okay, so how can people overcome their fear other than putting a nice smiley picture behind their camera? How can they get over the fear of putting themselves out there? Because I know personally it can be really difficult unless you just go for it and, hope for the best.
Yes, great question. Well, I have 7 awesome steps to get free publicity, and the O of the awesome stands for owning your power. Now, the first step is to realize that you do have a great story to share and that you are worthy of sharing that story. You do not need permission from anyone to actually step up with your story or with your message. And in fact, if you're not stepping up as an expert in your field and being known as the expert in your industry, then someone else in your field will be. And if you think about what they're sharing in the media, most likely it's not anything spectacular that you wouldn't share. The only difference is they've packaged up what they've done and they've put it out there in a way that you haven't. The good news is it's not too late, okay, because media have multiple experts on their books. So the thing is to overcome your fears, firstly, realize you're worthy. You have a great story to share. Your X factor is your story. Nobody else has your story. Realize that you are 1 in a billion just by being born. You've beaten a billion swimmers to get to the finish line just by being born, okay? Depending how exciting your parents were at the time, it'd be 400 million to 1.2 billion swimmers, but let's just say 1 in a billion to round off the figure. So you are extraordinary. There's a reason you're here. There's a reason you're passionate about what you're passionate about. And there's a reason you feel the way you do. And often it's linked to some of your stories from the past. Like, I'm passionate about animal causes. I've seen animal cruelty and been very upset by it. And so I went out and created the world's first Animal Action Day. And then I did 14 annual events raising awareness, appreciation, and respect for animals. That's one part of my story. Another part of my story, another thing I stand for, is good news. Why? the good news is about lifting the consciousness on the planet. I've had depression. I've had 4 friends take their own lives by the age of 45. And so it's something very close to my heart. I have a personal story around that, why I'm passionate about that. And I know that if we consistently watch negative mainstream news, we will end up depressed and suicidal. So it's about consciously lifting the energy on the planet. And that starts with lifting your own energy. So another tip I have to overcome your fears when you're speaking on video or being interviewed by the media is you're connecting with one person, right? You definitely do not want to be thinking about 2 million people watching this, right? You want to think about you're connecting with one person, you're having a conversation with that person. And one thing I like to do before I do my interviews or before I'm a guest speaker anywhere is I take a few deep breaths, breathing from the diaphragm, breathing in through the nose, and then out through the mouth. I do that 3 times. And then I close my eyes and I say, please let me say what needs to be said. And I just trust that the right words will come out. I say a little prayer, and it's nothing religious. It's, whatever your beliefs are, I put it out to the universe that the right words will come out that need to come out. And that way we're getting out of our head and into our heart, because this is often where people get stuck in fear, and they get stuck in interviews when they're too much in their head and worrying about, oh, what's the next step, next thing I wanted to say, and what's, they overanalyze, overthink things instead of coming from the heart space. And when you come from the heart space, you'll actually do a much more effective talk or interview, or you'll connect better with the audience, and you'll actually be a better, what they call talent. You'll be better talent for the media as well when you come across with that kind of passion. And we see people who do shocking interviews at Freeze, like I was when I was 11. It was a shocking interview, and so they just got me on the table tennis table, and they love that, right? Because I was in my genius and flow there, and out of my head, and moving my body. So out of your head into your heart, and owning your power. Also, I believe it's important to do personal development work. I've done a lot of work on myself over the years. I've done the Landmark Forum. I've done so many courses. I've invested $500,000 into my personal development since 2005, into personal and business development. So I'm a massive believer in education, and obviously acting on that education as well. That has definitely helped me build my confidence. Also doing things like Toastmasters, and I've done many other speaking courses as well, has really helped with my confidence in speaking, with the technical side of things. Although even though you could know all that stuff, it's still important to come from the heart and to realize that you are worthy. And the more passionate you are about whatever topic it is that you want to talk about, the more the flow will happen there as well.
Yeah, we have a mutual acquaintance who is head to heart space instructor in teaching people how to speak to the camera. So yeah, that's very, very similar to what he advocates. So yeah, it's good to hear. Good to hear. God bless his socks.
Beautiful. Yes, well, that's what's worked for me. But they're just hard on themselves. A lot of people are just way too hard on themselves.
I think so. The self-criticism comes, I think, from upbringing, because you've been told that you're not good enough, or who are you to speak to this person? So
yes, exactly. That's right, the monkey chatter, and so just notice it, say thanks for sharing, and then park it. And it is a practice. The more you do, the more confident you'll get, the better you'll get at it. So don't be too hard on yourself. Just trust the right words will come out. You know your story, you know what you're going to say. No one else knows exactly what's going to come out of your mouth. So don't be too hard on yourself. Just trust that the right words will come out. And
sometimes I don't even know what's going to come out of my mouth.
Same, exactly. So just really connect with the person who you're chatting with.
I've had foot and mouth disease quite often.
Yes, I think we all have at different times, for sure.
Yeah. So, Aldwyn, tell me a little bit about your books. You've written quite a number of them. What are they all about?
Yeah, well, I've actually got a chapter in about 14 compilation books, and they're all positive stories, inspiring truth and good news. They have different flavors. Like there's Feminescence, which is more of a feminine angle. There's Visions of Success, which is, most of my books, the book chapters, I cover steps to getting free publicity. And then I talk a bit about my background story, how I went from depressed and suicidal to inspiring truth and good news. And a lot of that came with actually loving myself, because the big thing to realize is that hurt people hurt people. And I was hurting growing up, and I was hurting myself. I was very self-destructive for a long time until there was the turning point. And I thought, I don't want to live my life this way anymore. I actually want to make the most of my life. And these few years that we have on the planet, a third of people die by the age of 65, right? So I've been in quite a few. There's one called Radiant that I was in recently. There's one called Think Big with Arnold Schwarzenegger. So I've been in quite a few different ones. One we just launched this week called My Voice, which is a global book with a whole lot of female entrepreneurs from all around the world. So there've been all sorts of different books with different flavors. Forever Touched by Suicide was one I did, talking about my experiences with my friends who suicided and how that made me appreciate life even more, and drove me even further to inspire more truth and good news. And actually, after my fourth friend suicided, I created the Good News Day on the 8th of the 8th, 18. And during COVID, I've created the Global Good News Challenge, which is a monthly Facebook Live challenge where people share gratitude and good news to lift the energy on the planet. So that's some of the topics that I've covered. I've talked about some of the near-death experiences that I've had. I actually had a quinsy in my throat quite a few years ago. I ended up in hospital over New Year's Eve for 3 days. I was emceeing at the Woodford Folk Festival, about to MC for Colin Hay from Men at Work, who did the Down Under song. And I had my throat started swelling, and what happened is I had a what they call a quinsy, which is basically a really bad form of tonsillitis. My throat started swelling, and if it had kept going, it would have blocked my airways and killed me. So I ended up in 3 days on an antibiotic drip in hospital with that experience, and a few of my other big learning experiences I've had in life. And as they say, the question to ask is not why this has happened to me, but why has this happened for me, right? And looking for the lessons in everything, you know, how I've been ripped off in the past with different situations and how I turned that into a positive. So looking at some of the highs and lows of my story, of this amazing roller coaster journey of life. I say life is like a roller coaster. Sometimes you feel like you're at the top of the roller coaster. Sometimes you feel like you're right down the bottom. Sometimes you feel like you're spinning round and round circles. Sometimes you feel like you're going backwards. And sometimes we need to slow down to speed up. And that's something that I have certainly learned, because as a journalist, it's been a go, go, go kind of high adrenaline lifestyle. I've had some amazing experiences, interviewed people like Hugh Jackman, Russell Crowe, Cyndi Lauper, Debbie Harry from Blondie. I've had some phenomenal interviews and VIP experiences and all sorts of experiences, seen accidents before the police and the ambulance have gone to accident scenes. I've been at the accident scenes. I've had some amazing experiences through that whole ride. However, with that, I've realized that with this high adrenaline, go, 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 go lifestyle, there's been a crash afterwards, right? So it's been go, 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 crash. And so I've really learned, particularly in the last few years, and been working on this, is actually working to slow down and meditate and do yoga and self-care, self-nurture, go to the beach, get massages, you know, fill my own cup up so I can help others with the overflow. So I've noticed a pattern there. And it's natural that we're going to have our low periods as well as our high periods in life. But the thing is how quickly can you navigate those low moments that we have to move through it and get on with life, and then look for the learnings in those experiences.
Absolutely. It doesn't matter if it's your personal life or your business life, you've always got to look out for the learnings in whatever it is that seems to go wrong, because there's always a lesson.
Yes.
No such thing as failure. There's always lessons. That's all.
Yes, learnings. Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. So where can people find you, Aldwyn?
Well, the best place is to go to linktree/Aldwyn, which is linktr.ee/Aldwyn. That's got all my social media links. I do a free Publicity Secrets Masterclass, which is on there. I have a social media masterclass that I've just launched. A lot of people have been asking me about social media marketing. So I'm now doing a masterclass on that. We have monthly Mass Media Tribe free events where we have different guest speakers every month. And also the Global Good News Challenge is a free event monthly where people can participate, and all those links are at linktree/Aldwyn.
Terrific. Thank you so much. And have you got any last words of wisdom that you would like to share?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Rose. I really want to share that you are extraordinary. If you're watching this or listening to this right now, you are extraordinary. And by you stepping up you will inspire your family, your friends, your community, your clients to also step up. And I think now more than ever, it's important that we raise our vibration as human beings, raise it to areas of love, of joy, of gratitude, no matter what is going on in the world, no matter what dramas are going on out there that we cannot control, such as we've seen with COVID. You can't control all that stuff. You can control how you're going to do life moment by moment, day by day. Like Bob Proctor says, to find your purpose, do what you love. Every single day, do as much as you can of what you love. Find your flow, find your zone, and outsource the rest, right? So that's the trick in life, I think, is to be in the zone, do what lights you up, what your genius zone is. The more you can do that, the happier you'll be, which will then have a ripple effect on all of those around you. Like Gandhi says, be the change you wish to see in the world. And like I say, shine bright and light up all those around you.
And where's your heart?
Oh, my heart is right here and sending love to everyone. And I have my magic wand too. My awesome form is the magic wand. And that's to show anything is possible for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Aldwyn. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much, Rose. Thanks for having me on.
Talking with the experts.